Europe is not burning with fire, but with growing tension and distrust. The man who promised to protect European unity may have just shaken it. Friedrich Merz, Germany's new chancellor, traveled to Washington with a clear goal. Many expected him to defend Europe's shared position against new U.S. trade tariffs. But behind closed doors, he held a private meeting with Donald Trump, and what happened there surprised many leaders across Europe. At the time, several European countries were preparing a united response to the tariffs announced by Donald Trump. Leaders in France, Italy, and Spain believed the European Union needed to stand together to negotiate effectively. However, reports suggest that Friedrich Merz may have taken a different approach, focusing primarily on protecting Germany's economic interests. To understand why this decision matters, it is important to look at Germany's situation. Germany's economy relies heavily on exports. German cars, machinery, and industrial equipment are sold across the world. When the United States announced a 10% tariff on many European goods, German industries immediately felt the pressure. Every day those tariffs remained in place meant possible financial losses for German manufacturers. Large German companies and business groups were pushing their government to act quickly. They warned that if the tariffs continued, it could hurt jobs, production, and long-term economic stability. Facing this pressure, Friedrich Merz decided to meet directly with Donald Trump in Washington instead of waiting for the European Union's collective negotiations to move forward. According to diplomatic sources, the discussion in Washington included the possibility of special treatment for certain German exports, especially cars and machinery. If true, this would mean German products might avoid some of the tariffs that other European countries would still face. Such a move could give German industries an advantage compared with companies in France, Italy, or Spain. European diplomats have reportedly begun referring to this idea as a German exception. The phrase reflects growing concern that one of Europe's most powerful countries may have negotiated separately rather than supporting a unified European strategy. But trade discussions rarely happen without conditions. Reports suggest that Germany may have made several commitments in return. One of them involved increasing purchases of American liquefied natural gas, commonly called LNG. Energy policy has become a major strategic issue for Europe, especially as countries try to balance energy security with independence from major global suppliers. If Germany increases long-term LNG purchases from the United States, it could strengthen economic ties between the two countries. However, some European analysts worry that such agreements could also give Washington greater influence over future energy decisions in Europe. Another part of the discussions reportedly involved defense cooperation. Germany may expand purchases of American military equipment and give U.S. defense companies stronger access to German procurement contracts. For some European policymakers, this raises concerns because several leaders, including Emmanuel Macron, have been promoting the idea of building a stronger and more independent European defense industry. When news of these discussions began to circulate, reactions inside European institutions were intense. Officials in Brussels, including those working with Ursula von der Leyen, had been developing a coordinated European response to the U.S. tariffs. That strategy relied on one key assumption: that all EU member states would negotiate together rather than individually. If Europe spoke with a single voice, it would have greater leverage in trade negotiations. But if one of its largest members acted independently, that unity could weaken. According to several reports, many European officials were surprised to learn about the Washington discussions through diplomatic sources rather than official communication. The timing also added to the controversy. Around the same period, Emmanuel Macron had been speaking publicly about strengthening European sovereignty, while Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez emphasized the importance of resisting economic pressure from abroad. When reports emerged that Germany may have already been discussing a separate arrangement, it created an awkward moment for several European leaders who had been promoting unity. As a result, many policymakers across Europe are now asking difficult questions. If major countries begin negotiating individually during global trade disputes, it could make collective European strategies harder to maintain in the future. And trade may not be the only issue involved. Reports from diplomatic circles suggest that the Washington meeting also included discussions about security cooperation, NATO responsibilities, and long-term strategic policies. These topics could have significant consequences for Europe's future role in global politics. The situation has therefore become more than just a debate about tariffs or exports. It has opened a wider conversation about trust, cooperation, and leadership inside Europe. Some analysts believe this moment could reshape how European countries coordinate their economic and security policies moving forward. What happened during the meeting between Friedrich Merz and Donald Trump is still being debated. But one thing is clear. The discussion has sparked serious questions across Europe about unity, strategy, and the balance between national interests and collective decisions. For the past 2 years, Emmanuel Macron has been promoting one of the most debated ideas in modern European politics. His proposal was bold but simple in principle. He argued that Europe should eventually develop its own nuclear deterrent. France already has nuclear weapons, but Emmanuel Macron suggested that France's nuclear protection could be expanded to help protect the entire European Union. The goal was to create a European nuclear shield that would allow the continent to rely less on the United States for security. At first, this idea seemed controversial. But over time it started gaining attention among European leaders and defense experts. Many believed that global politics was changing and that Europe needed to think more seriously about its long-term strategic independence. For this plan to work, however, one country was essential: Germany. Germany is the largest economy in Europe and one of the most influential political powers in the European Union. Even though Germany does not have nuclear weapons of its own, its political support and financial resources would be critical for any large European defense project. Many analysts believed that if Germany supported the idea, other European countries might also follow. However, reports suggest that during the meeting in Washington, Friedrich Merz made a different commitment. According to diplomatic sources, he reassured Donald Trump that Germany would continue relying fully on the existing NATO nuclear framework. This framework places nuclear protection primarily under the command of the United States. In other words, Germany would remain under the American nuclear umbrella rather than supporting the development of an independent European nuclear system. With that decision, many observers believe the momentum behind Emmanuel Macron's proposal slowed significantly. Without Germany's political backing, financial contribution, and geographic role in Europe, building a separate European nuclear deterrent would become extremely difficult. For supporters of the idea, this was disappointing because the concept of strategic autonomy had become an important topic in European political debates. Strategic autonomy refers to the idea that Europe should have the ability to make its own decisions on security, defense, and foreign policy without depending entirely on outside powers. Since the end of World War II, Europe has relied heavily on American military support, mainly through NATO. For decades, this arrangement provided stability. But in recent years, some European leaders have begun asking whether the continent should become more independent in handling its own defense responsibilities. Emmanuel Macron was one of the strongest voices promoting this discussion. He traveled across Europe giving speeches about the future of European security. He argued that Europe should be strong enough to defend itself and make strategic decisions independently if necessary. Some governments were skeptical at first, but others began showing interest in exploring the idea further. The developments surrounding Germany's position have now complicated that conversation. By reaffirming Germany's commitment to the existing American-led security structure, Friedrich Merz effectively signaled that Berlin currently prefers to maintain the traditional NATO framework rather than support a new European nuclear system. This shift has created frustration in several European capitals. In Paris especially, officials had invested significant political effort into building support for greater European defense independence. The French government had hoped Germany would become its key partner in advancing that long-term vision. Instead, the Washington meeting suggested a different direction. Germany emphasized continued cooperation with the United States in several areas, including defense purchases, energy partnerships, and security guarantees. For some European policymakers, this reinforced the idea that Europe will likely remain closely connected to American strategic leadership for the foreseeable future. The situation has raised new questions among European leaders. If Germany chose to prioritize its national economic and security interests in this moment, how will other countries respond in the future? And how can the European Union maintain unity when member states face different political and economic pressures? The impact of these developments quickly spread across Europe. In Rome, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni reportedly held meetings with senior advisors to assess the situation. Italy has a strong export economy, especially in luxury goods, machinery, and food products. If German companies receive special trade advantages in the American market, Italian businesses could face tougher competition. This concern is not only political, it is also economic. Trade policies can affect billions of euros in exports, thousands of companies, and many jobs across Europe. For governments responsible for protecting their national economies, these issues are extremely sensitive. In Paris, the reaction from Emmanuel Macron was more cautious but equally serious. Rather than responding with public anger, French officials reportedly began reviewing their diplomatic strategy within the European Union. Some European diplomats suggested that France might seek closer coordination with other countries such as Italy and Spain to ensure that future negotiations are handled collectively. This does not mean a direct confrontation with Germany, but it shows how sensitive the situation has become. European cooperation depends heavily on trust and consultation between member states. When major decisions appear to happen without full coordination, it can create tension even among long-standing partners. At the same time, analysts note that Friedrich Merz likely made his decisions based on Germany's domestic pressures. Germany's industrial sector has faced several economic challenges in recent years. Manufacturing output has slowed, and the automotive industry is facing strong competition from both Chinese electric vehicle producers and global trade restrictions. German leaders are therefore under intense pressure from businesses, workers, and voters to protect the country's economic stability. From that perspective, negotiating directly with Donald Trump may have been seen in Berlin as a practical step to protect key industries. This highlights one of the most difficult realities inside the European Union. The EU is built on cooperation and shared policies, but its members are still independent countries with their own political priorities and economic pressures. When crises appear, national interests can sometimes compete with collective strategies. Europe's long-term project has always depended on balancing those two forces: national sovereignty and shared cooperation. The European Union was created after two devastating world wars with the hope that deeper economic and political integration would prevent future conflicts and strengthen the continent as a whole. That vision still exists today, but moments like this reveal how complex it is to maintain unity among many powerful nations. Decisions made in one capital can quickly affect the political atmosphere across the entire continent. As discussions continue, European leaders are now carefully watching how the situation develops. The choices made during this period could influence trade relations, defense planning, and diplomatic cooperation in Europe for many years to come.